I'm looking at a note pulled from a kitchen counter in a quiet Ohio suburb, late 1980 seconds. It says, in all caps, "Gone to the store K." It's the kind of note anyone could leave at the last minute, plain paper, tidy margins, set where a set of house keys should have been. Except this one carries a tell. Every time the letter R appears, the leg has a tiny hitch, half a hair's width, like the arm stuttered and left a scar in the ink. I've seen that scar before, in a different room, on a different stack of paper, the attendance desk at Ridgefield High. Their office typewriter had history, an IBM Selectric with an R that never printed clean after the machine took a tumble from a rolling cart 2 summers back. The secretaries joked about it. Our R has a personality. 2 notes, one from a family kitchen, one from a school office. Same scar, same machine. You're watching the Justice Minute. If you care about how small details, paper fibers, carbon smudges, a bent letter can take a story apart, tap, subscribe, now. And help me map this community. Where are you watching from? What time is it there? And what's the weather like today? Drop those in the comments. I read them. This is a cold case by design, not by dust. The person at the center wasn't angry. She was prepared. Her name in our story is Reagan Mallory, 17, junior year, debate team captain, yearbook layout, guidance office helper during 3rd period. You've seen a student like her, precise with words, easy with eye contact, polite to every adult who might sign a form, first to volunteer when the office needed someone to file, stamp, or run this down to the attendance desk. The victim is her stepmother, Karen Mallory, steady. Worked part-time at a dry cleaner, balanced a hard budget, and drove a sedan that stalled every 3rd left turn if you didn't feather the gas just right. The people who knew Karen say she kept the house and kept the line curfew, meant curfew. The liquor cabinet key stayed on a chain, and you picked up your plates after dinner. The town is Ridgefield, Ohio, 2 stoplights longer than it was 5 years ago. A bowling alley, a roller rink with a neon sign that buzzes even when it's off. The high school gym smells like varnish and oranges, and the pep band can turn 3 chords into something that sounds like a college fight song. If you wanted a slice and a Coke after school, there was a strip mall with a pizza counter, a coin-op photo booth, and a copy center that charged by the sheet. Reagan understood grown-ups. She understood how to offer competence like a gift. Teachers talk. She's responsible. She stays after and stacks chairs. She brought me coffee once. She reads adults the way some students read novels, notes the dog-eared pages, and never loses her place. When she misses, she apologizes with the kind of smile that sounds like a solution. I can make it right. That's a talent. It's also a tool. When the guidance counselor needed help retyping next week's hall pass pads, those little pink slips you sign and tear, Reagan volunteered. The office typewriter was an IBM Selectric 2, heavy, loud, and dependable. Its type element, that round golf ball with the letters on it, had a tiny deformity on the letter R from the fall. The secretaries had learned to ignore it. Reagan didn't ignore it. She logged that R for 20 minutes, maybe 30. She learned how it looked in fresh ink. She learned how it felt under her fingers. She learned where the extra carbon sets lived and which basket held scrap onionskin you could use for practice. No drama, no music cue. Just a teenager with access, patience, and a memory for how things are supposed to look. Quick question for you before we dive deeper. Name one small detail you'd look for in a case like this. Handwriting ticks, paper stock, a receipt, a water bill with the wrong fold lines. What's your go-to tell? Comment with your pick. I want to see how you think. Planned is the word that matters here. Cold doesn't have to mean emotionless. In this case, it meant pre-built. Ridgefield High had a pep rally that week. Not the kind you remember for the game, the kind the administration schedules, so the local paper can run a photo of seniors in matching shirts. Reagan made sure she'd be seen. She volunteered to hang the Go Ridgefield banner at the gym entrance. She signed up to lead the chant from the bleachers. She told the yearbook editor to save her a spot up front for better photos. She built a second layer, a study group after school, a standing weekend shift at the roller rink snack bar, a phone tree that put her voice in living rooms across the subdivision. Hey, it's Reagan. Don't forget to bring $2 for the banner paint. Manipulation isn't always theatrical. Sometimes it's careful courtesy. Every person who could one day vouch for your whereabouts. You give them a reason to think they saw you, even when what they saw was a flash of a ponytail, a voice on a mic, or a signature on a poster that 10 people touched. If you want more cases broken down by how the setup works, not just what happened, hit like. It tells YouTube to show these evidence-first stories to more people. After school one day that week, the Mallory house ended up quiet. The neighbor taking out the trash didn't see visitors. A dog barked at a truck that slowed, then rolled on. Karen's sedan sat in the driveway like always. The afternoon light in late fall does that thing where it looks like 5 o'clock at 3:30. It makes your kitchen feel later than it is. Inside, the kitchen was 2 shades of tan, and a calendar with a kitten hung beside the fridge. A drawer by the stove held a ball of keys on a chain. One key was a twin of the front door. Teenage hands know which keys are loud and which don't rattle. I'm not going to serve you a dramatized sequence here. This show doesn't do that. Here's what the record in our story gives us. The method was contact. The medical examiner's report later used careful language, signs consistent with pressure applied to the airway, petechial findings that supported asphyxia, no defensive wounds indicating a prolonged struggle, no firearm, no blade, no noise that carries through vinyl siding to a neighbor cutting coupons on a couch. Quick, quiet, controlled. And then, a room staged to look like someone pushed through in a hurry. A kicked chair, a shallow drawer left open, a lamp skewed. On the counter, the note, "Gone to the store K." That note did 2 things at once. It suggested Karen had left willingly, which made the empty house feel ordinary. It also suggested the scene could have been interrupted, which made a missing object feel like the work of a stranger. It created a gap you could drive a story through. Back at school, the pep rally did what pep rallies do. It put 100 faces in a gym, gave everyone a reason to stop what they were doing, and made noise. Reagan led a chant. She passed a black felt-tip marker to sign the banner. She stepped into photos that captured smiles and motion blur. 2 students remember her voice over the mic. 1 teacher remembers a ponytail flying past. The yearbook editor remembers arguing with her about whether the block letters on the banner were straight. Visibility isn't the same as presence. It's the impression of presence. That difference matters. Let's bring in the objects. I want you to see them the way a county file would hold them. Envelopes, staples, a paperclip that leaves a dent in the top corner. Object 1, the kitchen note, all caps, "Gone to the store K." Typed on onionskin, the thin, slightly translucent paper that school offices loved because you could make clean carbon copies. Hold it to the light and you see a watermark, manufacturer's logo, and a faint chain line pattern that runs diagonally. Households bought memo pads at the pharmacy. Offices bought onionskin by the ream. The Mallory house kept a lined notepad by the phone, no watermark, standard pulp. The kitchen note wasn't from that pad. It matched the school's onionskin watermark and all. Object 2, attendance desk note, a typed excuse from a parent, delivered to the office earlier that week, excusing Reagan from last period on a day she later said she attended. The letter R on that note carries the same mechanical hitch you see in the school's hall pass pads. The school's Selectric made that R. The Mallory household's little manual portable, a hand-me-down from an aunt, printed a clean R if you pushed firmly. You can see its clean R on a recipe taped inside the pantry. Clean at home, bent at school. Object 3, hall pass pads, pink slips with carbon sets underneath. A pack went missing that week. No one noticed administrators misplace things all the time. But the empty space where a pad should have been got interesting when a geometry teacher turned in a hallway check with a carbon impression on the page below a backwards, "Reagan Mallory excused," pressed by hard keys. Secretaries don't smash keys that hard. Students in a hurry do. Object 4, a guidance office pad with a few sheets left and a hard cardboard backer. In a bottom drawer, the counselor kept old pads, just in case. On the top sheet of a retired pad, a pencil rubbed sideways brings up a ghost. Kitchen note, "Gone to store K." Someone practiced the exact phrase that later appeared on the counter. Practiced at school, on school paper, with a school machine. Object 5, yearbook contact sheet, black and white, 35mm frames, the kind photographers lay out in a grid to pick which frames to print. In one corner frame, you can see Reagan leaning over the banner, felt tip in hand. In her back pocket, the corner of a hall pass sticks out 3-layer thickness visible when you angle the light. 3 layers means carbon. The office's copy should be in a file. It wasn't. A duplicate turned up later in a trash can behind the gym, stamped but torn. Object 6. A pawn ticket from 2 counties over for a charm bracelet that Karen wore every Thursday. The ticket is made out to a boy Reagan tutored in algebra, older, a few credits behind, always short on gas money. He said she met him behind the bowling alley and handed him the bracelet with a line that sounded practiced. "Found this in the parking lot. You should sell it." He believed her because Reagan sounded like a plan. Object 7. An operator's log. Ridgefield still had a live operator at night for person-to-person calls and line assistance. A supervisor noted a call from a payphone near the practice fields. Caller asked to ring the Mallory residence and ask for Karen, then hung up when no one used the name. Why would someone need to establish whether Karen was home without saying why? To check whether the store note would pass without a neighbor spotting her. Send this to the friend who always spots the detail. Everyone else misses the person who can pick the one Polaroid on a corkboard that doesn't fit. I want them in this community with us. Let's talk about how Reagan steered the adults in her world, because this part is hard if you've spent your life telling kids to speak up and be responsible. Reagan cried when adults needed her to cry, composed when they needed composure. She delivered a casserole to the neighbor 2 doors down with a note. "Thinking of you," she called the roller rink, to say she might be late to her weekend shift because of family stuff, which let the manager tell everyone else. Reagan's dealing with a lot. Be kind if she seems off. She took the air out of everyone's suspicion by filling rooms with reason to forgive. When detectives sat with her, she answered in complete sentences with a sincerity that made people lean back in their chairs and feel bad for asking another question. She led with, "I don't want to say anything that gets anyone in trouble," which planted the idea that someone else might be to blame. She described a car she might have seen on their street last week, and she described it just clearly enough to let up the pressure without ever giving a plate. Dark. Maybe a Chevy, maybe a Ford. 2 doors? The taillights had a line. Adults like competence. They like kids who speak politely and help stack chairs after assemblies. Reagan understood that truth, and she lived inside it. She understood that if you're first to offer help, Xeroxing flyers, returning library carts, delivering attendance slips, people stop looking at you as a subject and start using you as a conduit. If you were her teacher, what's one question you'd ask that doesn't sound like an accusation but forces a precise answer? It can't be, "Where were you?" It has to be, "Who stamped that hall pass for last Thursday? And what did you say to them?" Drop it in the comments. I read them, and I learned from how you push for clarity without heat. There's a reason this didn't fall apart in a week. There wasn't a big CSI moment, no magic print, no lab result that lights up under a blue lamp and ends the conversation. It came apart the way a sweater does catch a thread on a nail, and the hem unspools slowly, then all at once. A secretary remembered the Selectrix bent R at a retirement dinner. She laughed about it, the machine that never hit the letter right, and someone else at the table said, "Like that kitchen note on the news, right?" She stopped laughing. That offhand comment made her put 2 pages side by side in her mind. The yearbook kid senior, braces. Camera always around his neck, brought in a contact sheet he'd kept because he thought the blur looked artsy. In the margin frame, you could read the top of a hall pass peeking from Reagan's pocket. The top line had the office's stamped date, and the tail of an R at the end of homeroom carried that tiny hitch. The kid angled the contact sheet by a window and said, "You can see 3 layers." He was right. Carbon sets make layers you can spot if you know what to look for. The guidance counselor, the one with the just-in-case drawer, brought in the retired pad, and someone with patience shaded a pencil sidewise across the top sheet. The ghost letters rose like a tide. Kitchen note, gone to store K. Practice text. Same phrase, same rhythm, same cap lock habit. Practiced at school, used at home. You see what I'm doing here? I'm not asking you to believe anyone's feelings. I'm asking you to hold the paper at a slant and tell me what the fibers say. In court, This wasn't about whether a teenager could be polite. It was about whether a sequence of small, deliberate acts over days added up to a plan. Lawyers argued about competence. They argued about intent. They argued about what a 17-year-old could truly understand. When does an idea cross from a thought to a scheme? When you learn what a bent letter looks like and where the carbon is kept. Or when a bracelet crosses a county line with a cashier's signature and a date stamp. The panel didn't get a tape of a confession. They got objects. A kitchen note typed on the school machine, proven by the bent R and confirmed by the onionskin watermark that matched the school's ream. An attendance excuse that used the same machine quirk and excused someone from a period they later claimed they'd sat through. A hall pass visible in a contact sheet, layered and thick, with the office's copy missing and a duplicate found torn in a gym trash can. A guidance pad ghost with the exact language later found at home. A pawn ticket tied to a bracelet that left the house, passed to a boy she could steer, then turned into cash well away from the county line. An operator's log that captured a payphone check call placed from campus, used to test whether a note at home would pass without questions. There's a detail I've not mentioned yet, and it matters because it keeps this concrete. The medical examiner's estimate of the time of death, based on body temperature, lividity, and house conditions, landed in an afternoon window that started after school let out and ended before the pep rally. No stopwatch, no minute by minute, just a human frame cooling in a draftless room the way human frames do. It put the event in the narrow band of time when the house was quiet and the school was loud. You can feel how close this came to never being understood. If the secretary never jokes at that dinner, if the yearbook kid never keeps a blurry contact sheet, if the counselor cleans her drawer, if a boy never admits a bracelet came from a girl who sounded like a plan, this fragments differently. Ridgefield is the kind of county where judges attend football games and can tell you which year the band got new uniforms. Trying a teenager in adult court wasn't the default, and it didn't happen quickly. The arguments were dense, the transcripts longer than they needed to be, and every grown-up in the room looked older at the end than at the beginning. It came back to paper, not a lab, not a moment, paper, a machine scar you can see with your eyes, carbon layers you can feel with your fingers, a watermark that shows up when you hold a sheet to a fluorescent light, a ghost sentence that rises under a pencil. The verdict form is heavy stock, with clean lines and a place for a signature, the foreperson signed. Guilty of murder in the first degree. The judge used language that matters. Planned, calculated, not a flash of panic, a week of engineering, a life term with the possibility of parole after many years. There wasn't a scene in the courtroom when the words landed. No outburst. Just the sound of a pen, the shuffle of shoes, a chair that needed oil, and a teenager who had survived for months by predicting what every adult would do next. Realizing that the people she underestimated weren't detectives with shiny badges. They were secretaries who remember a machine's limp on a letter, kids who save contact sheets, managers who keep pawn tickets in a cigar box, and a switchboard supervisor who still writes down odd calls because their first boss told them to in 1978, and nobody ever said stop. What stays with me isn't the banner or the pep rally or the casserole that bought Reagan sympathy at the neighbor's door. It's the fact that a machine's minor injury, a bent-type element, turned into a witness. It's the way an ordinary office habit, carbon pads in a drawer, became a trail. It's the way a teacher's staff dinner turned into a memory that turned into a comparison that turned into a case. Which single detail breaks this open for you? The bent R, the carbon ghost, the onionskin watermark, the operator's call note, the pawn ticket 2 counties away? Tell me why. Your answer helps me decide how deep we go on these object lessons next time. If you've got someone in your life who teaches, runs a front office, or files the forms the rest of us forget about, share this episode with them. They are the guardians of the small truths that hold big stories together. Let me leave you with a standard I want us to keep, story after story on this channel. Make the case with things you can lay on a table, not a flourish, not a feeling. Clocks when we have them, yes, but not a maze of minute marks that confuses more than it clarifies. Papers with watermarks, machines with quirks, tickets with dates. Notes that tell you where the ink came from, not who someone wants you to believe they were. Thank you for watching the Justice Minute. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next case.